In this video, we will try to understand how can we create users and permissions in SharePoint 2010. Now, before we go ahead and we try to understand that how we can create users and permissions in SharePoint 2010, let's try to understand that in normal software, if you have a very simple normal application, how actually users and permissions work. And once we understand that, then we will try to map the same with SharePoint 2010. In any software, permission management is a three-step process. So the first step is you create users, the second step is you create permissions, and then you link the users with the permissions. So in other words, what you will do is basically you will create different users like Shiv, Raju, Sham, and then the next step is you will create permissions. For example, you will say, okay, edit, some of the users can have edit permissions, view only permissions, download permissions, okay, and then you will say, okay, now Shiv can do edit, he can also do a view, and if he wants, he can also do downloads. So we are allocating Shiv with all the three permissions. And then I will say Raju can only go and view the records. And then I can go one step further and say, Sham can only go and download the records. Now, rather than going and allocating individual permissions to every individual user, which can become very cumbersome, what we can do is we can form a group. So I can say, okay, these all users are admins. There are some other sets of user. I can group them into some user group called as simple users. Now what I can do is I can take these permissions and allocate these permissions to these user groups. So I can say, okay, all the users who belong to the admin group will have access or will have permission to view, edit and download. And then I can also say that, okay, all the users who belong to the simple users group will have only have access to view the record. Okay, so in this way, rather than going and allocating rights individually, I can create user groups and allocate the rights to those user groups, and indirectly all the users who belong to that user group will also get those rights. So now what do we expect from SharePoint? In order to easily create permissions in SharePoint, I should be able to do 4 things in SharePoint. So point number 1, I should be able to create permissions. So I should be able to create view only permissions, edit only permissions, or downloadable permissions. So I should be able to create permissions in SharePoint. Second, I should be able to create user groups. Third, I should be able to add users inside this user groups which I have created. And fourth, I should be able to link the permissions with the group. So I should be able to link permission with user groups. So if I'm able to do these 4 things by using SharePoint, I think I'm in a better position to do permission management, right? So let's start with the first point, creating permissions in SharePoint. In order to create permissions, click on the site actions menu, and there is something called as a site permissions link here. Click on the site permissions. Now by default, you can see that already there are some default permission levels already created. In order to see them in detail, you can click on these permission levels. So you can see that there are 6 permission levels which are by default created. For example, the first one is a full control. Now if you click on full control, you can see that you can do everything with SharePoint here. You can go and manage list. You can go and override check in and check out, add items, delete items, view items, approve. You can also go and create sites, subsites, add and customize pages, style sheets. So this permission, the full control, means everything in the world. The second kind of permission level you can see is the design, where you can go and add, update and delete and customize your pages, etc. So more of for people who want to go and add pages, design the page, etc. The third one is contribute, where basically it's like more from the end user perspective, where the user can go and add, update and delete list items, do data entry and etc. etc. The fourth one is read, the fifth one is a limited access, and the last one is view only. So you can see that by default there are some permissions created here. If you are really interested in each of these permissions, you can go and click on this link, and it will actually tell you that what kind of permissions the current permission level has. So the first point is permissions, and if you want to go and create your own permissions, what you can do is you can go and say add a permission level, define a name for the permission. For example, I can say my permission, something like this, and I can say okay, what I can do here is probably I can just go and manage list. I can go and add items, edit items, delete items, etc., etc., and then I can go and create. So what will happen is this permission level, whichever user or whichever user groups get this permission level, he will be able to only add items, edit items, delete items, and manage list. So if you want, you can always go and create your individual permission levels, but at this moment I'm not going to do that because whatever permission level currently we have is more than enough. So we are able to do the first activity, that is create permissions. Now the next step is we would like to go and create a user group, and we would like to assign this permission to the user group. So we would like to do step number 2. We have already done step number 1, so we would like to do step number 2 and step number 4, and then we will finally do step number 3. So how do we create a user group now in SharePoint? Let's see that. So again, ensure that you have clicked on site settings and you have clicked on site permissions. Now if you go here, you can see that these are default user groups, and you can see at the right hand side it also tells what kind of permissions are allocated to these user groups. Now if you want to create a group, you can see that there is a menu here called as create group. So you can click on create group, give a name to this group, and then you can assign the permissions by using this checkboxes you can see. So you can say okay, give me full control, or give this user group a design control, or whatever you wish to. Okay. And if you want to go and add a user into this user group, you can click on the user group, and then you can go to that user group and say add users to this group, right? So very simple. If you want to create permissions, then you can go to the permission level and add a permission level. If you want to create a user group, create a group, assign the permissions here, and if you want to add a user to that user group, go to that user group and click on new users. Now that we know all the 4 steps of how to add the users to the user group, how to create a user group, how to create permission level, and how to do the linkages, let's do a small demo end to end to understand all these concepts in all these concepts in totality. Now for the demo, we will take the same Quest IT portal, and we will try to do a small demo around this Quest ID portal. Now in case you have come to this video directly, I would suggest you to see the first 2 videos where we have created a complete portal end to end by using SharePoint. So for this video I'm going to start directly. So in case if you are new to this video section, I would suggest you to see the previous 2 parts of the video where we have created this portal where we had a HR section and account section. Now if you see currently I'm logged in as administrator, so I can see the Quest HR section. In the HR section I can go and upload resumes and also add employees to the database. Also I have account section where I can go and do voucher entries, and as well as I can go and upload accounting documents. Now because I'm admin, I'm able to see all the 2 sites, the HR and the accounts. But now I would like to do something like this. I would like to create a user called as HR who can only see the HR section and not the accounts. And I would like to create a accounts user who can only see the accounts section but not the HR section. So let's create 2 users called as HR and accounts, and then let's allocate them permissions and rights, and let's see that how we can customize this portal as per the usernames. If this was a normal development, normal ASP.NET development, what you would have done is you would have created a table called as tbl_user with fields like username and password, and then you would have written a ASP.NET code, where probably you would have gone to the database, read the value fields, etc., etc. But in SharePoint actually things are different. Okay, so let me first explain you exactly how SharePoint identifies its users from the system, and then we will go and create the HR and the accounts user. Now the complete SharePoint system, okay, the SharePoint portal actually stands on Windows 2008. server, okay, or Windows 2008 or Windows 7, whatever it is. Okay. Now SharePoint by default sees the Windows ADS, Active Directory Services, for the users. So any users which are added to the Windows ADS will be picked by SharePoint and validated. Okay, either you can add the users into Windows ADS or into your local user group. Okay, so here we don't create a table as such, but we go and we add it to the Windows ADS, and the SharePoint actually validates the user who is existing in the Windows ADS. Now in case you're going to have your custom table, then things are different. In the later videos we'll see that how you can validate users from your custom table, but by default SharePoint first goes and looks up that if the user is existing in a Windows ADS, and then as per the user he will then go and allocate rights, allocate rights for the user, depending on what kind of permission sets or what kind of user group the user actually belongs to. So first let's go and create two users, that is HR and accounts, in the local user group, and then we will go and allocate these users into SharePoint groups and then give them permission levels. So let's go and add HR and accounts to our local user groups. So go to computer icon which is on your desktop, right click and click on manage. Once you click on manage, you will be popped up with the server manager. Currently I don't have what you call a domain server here, so in case I had a domain server I would have used the domain server to create the user. So currently I will use my local user groups. So go and expand configurations node, and you can see that there's a local user group icon over here. Click on that, go to the users. Now let's right click and create a first user called as HR. So this is the HR, a simple password. Great. And in the same way let's go and create accounts. So this is the accountant, simple password. Great. So you can see over here that I have created two users, accounts and HR. Now let's go to a SharePoint portal and let's see that how we can use these two users, that is accounts and HR, to do rights management or to do permission management. So let's go to a portal, let's go to site permissions. And the first thing what we'll do is we'll create two user groups. Okay, one is the HR user group and the other one is account user group. Now we will use the existing permission levels what we have. Okay, so we are not going to create any permission levels over here. So let's hit on create user, create group, and let's create, I'm going to say the HR group. Okay, and let me keep the owner currently as administrator. And this user is not an admin. This group will not have admin users. In other words, people will not be able to design and delete and approve, etc. What they will be able to do is they will be only able to contribute. In other words, they would be able to add data, update data to list items. They will be able to view, read, and also they will be able to view. Okay, so this user group will contain HR users who are simple users who can add, update and delete data, and also they will be able to read and download data. So I'm going to hit on create now, and in the same way I will go and create one more user group called as the accounts user group. So let me again go back to my site permissions, and over here let me go again, click on create group, and I'm going to say here the accounts group. Okay, again this group will have simple users who have access to the accounts section. So I'm going to say they should be able to contribute, they should be able to read, and they should be able to view the documents. I'm going to say create. Right, so I have created two user groups. One is the accounts user groups and the other one is the HR user groups. So if you see the site permissions, I have two user groups, the accounts user groups and the HR user group. Now let's start adding the users, that is HR and accounts, into these user groups. So let's go and first add the accounts user. So let me go to the accounts user group and I'll say new, add users. Now you can see that already the administrator is a part of the accounts user group, and that's absolutely fine. We want that the administrator should have access to everyone in the world, so that's fine. So let me go and add a user which I have just created in my local user accounts. say accounts, check it, and okay. So there's my user group called as accounts, the accounts group, and in that I have two users, accounts and administrator. In the same way, let me go to the HR user group and let's add over here HR. So check. So okay. So we have created the HR user group. We have assigned the HR user into that group. In the same way, we have created the accounts user group and we have assigned the accounts user into the accounts user group. Now the next step is, the HR group and the accounts group, we need to allocate it to the respective sites, that is Quest HR and Quest accounts. Now before I start allocating the groups to the site, let me talk about a concept here called as permission inheritance. Now what happens is, whenever you create a user group, right, any user group or any kind of permissions you create, everything happens at the site collection level. So any kind of permission created actually gets applied on the site collection. And whenever you create any site over here, let's say that in our case we had the account site and we had the HR site, all these permission level actually get applied to the child sites also. Okay. Now in our particular case, we don't want this. Okay. For example, if you see, right, currently we have created the HR and the accounts, right? So we don't want that the HR and the accounts should start getting applied to the child sites, right? So we would like to stop this inheritance, and then we would like to customize permissions to these respective sites. So how do we do that? So let's start first from the Quest HR site. So let's click on Quest HR. Now once you click on Quest HR, now click on site settings and go to site permissions. Now remember that whenever you want to see site permissions, you have to be on that site. For example, because now I want to go and customize Quest HR site permissions, I have first gone ahead, first I have landed on the home page of Quest HR, and then I'm clicking on the site permissions. So now if you click on site permissions, now you can see that by default, as I said, right, all the members, all the user groups are allocated to this site, which I don't want. So what I will do is, in order to stop this inheritance, you can see that there is a button here called as stop inheriting permissions. So I'm going to go and click on this button, and I'm going to say that this is a HR site, so I only want the HR group to have access to this, and the other all sites I would like to go and remove the user permissions. So I've checked them and I'm clicking on this remove user permissions, and the only users who belong to the HR group have now access to this site. Okay. Now let me again go back to my Quest IT collection, and let me go to Quest accounts again. Now let me go and edit the site permissions for Quest accounts. Again, the same thing, you can see that all the site permissions have been inherited by this site. So I'm going to go and say stop inheritance, and I'm going to say that only the accounts group has access to this thing. So I'm going to say remove user permission. So there's our accounts group allocated to the account site. So if I go to my main Quest IT collection, and if I see the site permission at the collection level, I can see all the collection levels over all the permissions here. The time I go to the HR site permissions, you can see that only HR group has access to the HR site. And if I go to my Quest accounts, and if I go to the site permissions, only the accounts group has access. So we are all set. We have now the accounts user will be able to only access the accounts site, and the HR user will only be able to access the HR site. Now let's go and log in as HR, and let's see how it looks like. Let's go and log in as accounts user, and let's see how it looks like. Now currently I am logged in as administrator, so I can see both the Quest HR link as well as I can see the link for accounts. So now let me go and log in as HR. So you can see at the right hand side there is a link here stating sign in as different user. So I'm going to click on this link and let me log in as HR. Now you can see that I can only see the HR link over here. Actually on the home page, let me just go back. There was something there. On the home page I can see this Quest account links, accounts link, but if I click on this link, you can see that it throws me an error here saying access denied. So I have not yet customized this, so that's why I see this link, or else this link also will not be visible. So you can see that I can go to the Quest HR link, I can go and add employees if I wish, or I can go and add resumes if I wish. Now let me go and log in as accounts. So let me again go click here and sign in as a different user. So let me just put my password here for accountant. Oops, pass at the 3. What's happening? Let me just browse directly to accounts here. Must be something. Right, sorry for that. So you can see that because I'm logged in as accountant, I can only see the Quest accounts link, and I can go and do voucher entries, as well as I can go and upload accounting documents if I wish. You can see at the left hand side again over here there is a Quest HR link, but if I click on this, nothing will happen. It will not allow me to go ahead, because Quest HR because the Quest HR menu cannot be accessed by the accountants. So you saw that how easy it is to do permission management in SharePoint, by using user groups, by assigning permission sets, and by basically creating your user in the local user group. So I hope that you enjoyed this video, and in this video we saw that how we can do permission management using SharePoint 2010. Thank you very much.